Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? It's your man, Rondell Jordan, aka the Black Swan. I'm back today with another podcast. Today, I'm going over the story, the Tower of Babel, in Genesis 11. So if you are able to follow along with me, I definitely encourage that you do, so that you can see exactly what I'm seeing. But what I will be doing is reading it word by word, verbatim out of the New King James Version, and then analyzing, what is it the story is telling us. Again, this story is very short. It's actually half of the chapter of Genesis 11. It's only half of it. It is placed in between the story of Noah, and the story of Abraham. And it's also the primary theme or topic in chapter 10 and 11, and is leading to chapter 12, which is Abraham, the promise to Abram, which is the land of Canaan. And most of this establishes the right and the entitlement of Abram inheriting Canaan, and Abram basically migrating from out of Mesopotamia into this land, and then also entering into Egypt. So that's all important to have in mind, I believe. Now I'm going to do, as I usually do, preface in the chapter before a little bit, because all the chapters are related. This is a book. Genesis is a book of 50 chapters, and they're all related. And that's why I believe that it should be read as a book. All right, so just a little bit of notes. I am analyzing chapter 11, the Tower of Babel, but to establish some of that, we have to go to chapter 10. And first of all, like I said, it starts off, it says, "Now this is the genealogy of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the sons were born to them after the flood." Okay, and I'm going to fast forward to verse 5, and it says, "From these the coastland people of the Gentiles were separated into their lands, everyone according to his own language, according to their families, into their nations." Okay, so from Noah, previously it said that Genesis 9 verse 18, it says, "Now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Ham was the father of Canaan." So you'll notice that Canaan is put in there a lot, because Canaan is the land in which trying to be occupied in this point in time in history, as far as in the story of Genesis. And it says, "These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent." Now that's a story, we already know that. And then they end up cursing Canaan, and it says, "A servant of servants he shall be to his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Joseph, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant." So it's Genesis 9, they're working on Canaan, and on why Canaan don't deserve to be, and whatnot. And it's all stemming from Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Joseph took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. So Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had did to him. Then he said, "Cursed be Canaan." Okay. Now, in that little thing, we didn't learn too much about what Canaan did. He just said he saw the nakedness of his father, and he told his two brothers outside. It's also said that he had joked, or he had ridiculed his father, but it doesn't even say that clearly. It just says, like I said, "And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside." But it says, "But Shem and Joseph took their garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their fathers. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness." See? So because of that, Canaan was cursed. So it says, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants. He shall be to his brothers. So it's establishing for justification of one having to serve the other. And this is supposed to be in the foundation. Okay. So, it continues down. I mean, if you have your Bibles out, please. I did find that Noah says, and Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noah were 950 years and he died. So Adam lived 930 years. So Noah actually, by the story, lived 20 years longer than Adam. I think even with Adam and Cain and Canaan, Canaan is associated with Cain, right? Because it says that Enosh, which was Adam's grandson, begot Canaan. That was in Genesis 5:9. But this Canaan thing is definitely the central premise of a lot of this stuff here. One other thing too, over here at Genesis 10, it says the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Okay, and the sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabata, Rama, and Shebacha. And the sons of Rama were Sheba and Dedan. Again, Seba, Sheba, Queen of Sheba, Cush, Put. These are nations. These are nations. These are countries. You do your research, you'll find, you already know Canaan was a country, but they also use Canaan as a country and as a person at the same time. Okay, like the nation that came from this person. Same thing with Jacob and Israel, and Jacob being related to Isaac and Abraham, right? These all became nations, right? And then Joseph after Jacob. All of the stories of their lives have to do with their footprint in Canaan and their footprint in Egypt, okay? And it tells you very clearly that they migrate and they multiply and become prosperous. So in Genesis 10:8, it says, Cush begot Nimrod. So he began to be a mighty one on the earth. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Like Nimrod, this is in quotes too. So they're quoting. My concern or my thoughts go to who is it that they're quoting? Who is it that the Bible writer is quoting? Okay. When they say it's quoted like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, it's in quotes. And it also says, therefore it is said like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Where was it said? Who are they quoting? That's just my interest. All right. So verse 10. It says, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Chaldea, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, and Calah, Calah. That is the principal city. Then it goes, Mizraim begot Ludim. All right, so that's his brothers, okay? Also, I want to note real quick, verse 18, it says the Averdite, the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. Afterwards, the families of the Canaanites were dispersed. Again, the writers usually mention what's going to happen. It's going to be some type of prophecy of what's going to actually unfold. But so it's saying something. Afterwards, the family of the Canaanites were dispersed. Just let's hold that in mind. And then verse 32, the conclusion of chapter 10 going into chapter 11, which is the reason why we're here today. These were the families of the sons of Noah according to their generation in their nations, and from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. Keep in mind, we are in Genesis 10, and we're talking about generations, and we're talking about lineages, and we're talking about descendants, and who begot who begot who begot. This is a family tree, right? It has a lot to do with the lineage, the genealogy. And so this is a particular people's genealogy in which we're reading about. And I don't think that that's a mystery to a lot of people out there, but I'm just trying to really drive home that we're not talking about the entire earth. We're talking about a lineage or genealogy of people. There are other people, other nations that are on the earth, even though it's like when we say World War I or World War II, those world wars didn't involve every country on the whole world. You see what I'm saying? They didn't involve what African nations took part in World War II, World War I, that fought in them. You know, I'm not saying that there wasn't any, but what I'm saying is it was not the whole world that was actually at war. But in our minds, it was a world war because we were told that it was a world war. But, you know, was Brazil, was Peru involved? Was Argentina involved? Was Cuba involved? Was Russia involved? What was the involvement of the entire world? But in a specific people's mind, they are the world, okay? These people, when they come in your land, they see that this land can be mine. You don't count. You see what I'm saying? So I just kind of you know, where am I going with that? I'm telling you, it says, we just read in Genesis 10, it says, from these the coastland peoples of the Gentiles were separated into their lands, everyone according to his own language, according to their families, into their nations. Well, are they talking? I mean, they talking about the coastline people of the Gentiles were separated in their lands, everyone according to his own language. This is after the flood. This is Genesis 10. The flood was in what, Genesis 7. So this is after the flood. Okay, and it says just the chapter before we went through that, chapter 9, 18 and 19, it says that now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Josepheth, and Ham was the father of Canaan. So that was very important that they highlighted that. Now these were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. Okay, and so let's just get into now chapter 11. The Tower of Babel is very short. There's some myths about this story. People call it the Tower of Babylon. That there's no such thing as the Tower of Babylon. It is two completely, totally different things. Okay? There's a lot of people that think that this story was a matter of people disobeying God. That God warned them and said, stop building, and then they didn't heed him. So he punished Nimrod and he divided the language among the people. So if this is the way I was introduced to the story, and then when I read it, and I'm just amazed by how short it is, it's less than half of the whole chapter. And it says, here we go, chapter 11. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. Pause. I must pause. So these people already knew, and they had a fear that they be scattered. It says, let us do this, lest we be scattered abroad. So they knew that they were going to be scattered abroad. This is Genesis 11, right? To be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. They had a fear or pre-knowledge of being scattered, or the potential of being scattered. So they said, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in heaven. And the thing I think about, okay, pyramid builders. And of course, Black Wall Street. Okay, a people finally able to speak one language after not being able to. All right, a people learning how to basically bricks and stone and asphalt and mortar. This means that we are builders, yes, but also is masonry. Okay, it's specifically called masonry. Okay, and so let's go ahead and keep going. This is verse 5. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the Son of Man had built. Pause. Unlike the story of Adam and Eve, when they use Lord, they use God synonymously. So they said Lord God, which we analyzed the characteristics as what that individual was according to his deeds in the story, the characteristics of his story. What the story, the clues the story gave us is that this was a human figure, right? A human figure that had a knowledge, right? And when Adam and Eve obtained knowledge and their eyes were awakened, it says they became like one of us. It was even said by the serpent that once you know, then you will become like God, right? But anyway, in this particular chapter 11, still in Genesis, and 5, it says, but the Lord came. Now, they already established that Lord is a rank of an individual. If you have a servant or someone in debt to you, right? Like a landlord, you living in that person's house, it costs a certain amount for the year, and then they break that down month to month. So really you owe him for staying, or her for staying into that property. That is your Lord, right? Otherwise you're homeless. And your boss could be considered Lord. If you were a slave in those days, they would definitely would call their master Lord. But I'm just saying that that's very important, because it says, but the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. Semicolon. Now nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Verse 7, it says, come, comma, let us go down and there confuse their language. Again, come, let us go down and there confuse their language. We talking about a sole, omnipotent God? If it is, then why is it saying come? Who is it saying come to? To the angels? Well, who are to consider the angels? And it says he's bringing this allegiance. Come with me, right? Come, let us, capital U. Why is the U capitalized? So is it allegiance of higher ranking individuals? Come, let us go down and there confuse their language. And they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth. And they ceased building the city. Okay. It says the Lord scattered them abroad. Abroad specifically means abroad, outside the country, overseas, right? From over there, over the face of all the earth, shipping them out. And they ceased building the city. This is a diaspora. So they stopped building. Therefore, its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, not of that place, of all the earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth.
Diaspora.
In the story, ladies and gentlemen, because Genesis 11:10 states that this is the genealogy of Shem. So they go into the other brother now. Shem was 100 years old and begot Araphat 2 years after the flood. After he begot Araphat, Shem lived 500 years and begot sons and daughters. Araphat lived 35 years and begot Salah. After he begot Salah, Araphat lived 403 years and begot sons and daughters. This is a man 3 and 4, 500 years old having children. But that's on you, what you get from that. And then right after that, right after Genesis 11 ends, we start, now the Lord had said to Abram, Get out of your country, from your kindred, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. This is why Israel is such a staple part of our society, the religion. It's the reason why we give so much money to that country. And all of these things, like I said, the story of the Tower of Babel, it says the whole earth had one language and one speech. But then it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east. So they're saying that these are foreigners. And they found the plain of the land of Shinar, and they dwelt in. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. Had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. Tell me, where is this a matter of a people disobeying God? Where was the warning at? So why were they cursed? Why were their language scattered, right? But the curse wasn't, the story is told that God warned them, they disobeyed, they kept building. And then while they were building, God cursed them and divided the language. So they had to disperse because they couldn't communicate. But that's not what the Bible story says. The Bible story says this was a plot. That someone said, come, let us go down and there confuse their language that they may not understand one another's speech. They were trying to prevent these people from building a city for themselves. These people were afraid that they would be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. These people finally gained one language. They finally gained one speech. And they were plotted on. This was a conspiracy. Like Black Wall Street, okay? When I say Black Wall Street, I'm talking about the black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The white supremacists in the United States of America went in and they seen that these people had land and these people had educated themselves and these people were making for themselves a successful community, and they didn't like that. So they came up with a reason. Oh, he messed with one of our women. So we got to burn the whole city down because they alleged that one person violated a woman of theirs. Well, where on the planet did they get that from? Well, I'll tell you. That's the Dinah Incident, for those who don't know. Which we will go through. I'll definitely do a podcast on that. The Dinah Incident, Genesis 34. This is where Jacob and his people, they were wanderers, and they were wandered about a land in which Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her. He took her and laid with her. And in these people's minds, that was a violation because Jacob is Israel. You're not supposed to mess with one of the daughters of Jacob or the daughters of Israel. Okay? And he should have known that. So, they was plotting on revenge for sure. Right after that, Jacob and his peoples, his brothers, it says Jacob's brothers, right? And so the prince, Shechem, he was in love. It says his soul was strongly attached to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. And he loved the young woman. He spoke kindly to the young woman. So Shechem spoke to his father and his mom saying, get me this young woman as a wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with this livestock and in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they came. Then Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with them. And the sons of Jacob came in the field. When they heard it, and the men were grieved and very angry because he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by laying with Jacob's daughter, a thing which ought not to be done. This is Genesis 34. But Hamor spoke to them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife and make marriages with us. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters to yourselves. So you shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade in it, and acquire possessions for yourselves in it. Then Shechem said to her father and her brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me I will give. Ask me ever so much, dowry and gift, and I will give according to what you say to me. But give me the young woman as a wife." But the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father and spoke deceitfully, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. Again, it tells you before it happens, then it goes into what actually happens. But it tells you they spoke deceitfully. This is a storyteller. He already know the conclusion. It's not a journal, but he's telling you they spoke deceitfully. And they said to them, "We cannot do this thing to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. But on this condition we will consent to you, if you will become as we are. If every male of you is circumcised, then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people." Pause. So they wanted to see some blood. They wanted some pain, right? So you got to cut your genitalia. Keep that in mind. Your reproductive organ. This would be an act of inferiority. If I come to you and I make a deal with you, but I say from you, I want you to draw blood. I want you to do something like us. You got to become like us. So you got to cut yourself in a very sensitive, private place in order for this to work. But they said, I'll do anything, name your price. So it says in verse 15, "But on this condition we will consent to you, if you will become as we are. If every male of you is circumcised, then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not heed us and be circumcised, then we will take your daughter and be gone." And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son, pause, because they, in my perspective, were humane. He was acting out of love. And so he was happy to hear this, because it was a means for him to be in love with this woman that he's so, he's begging her father and her brothers for marriage. Keep that in mind. All right. So this is a very short, it's almost done here. In 21, "These men are at peace with us, therefore let them dwell in the land and trade in it." This is what Hamor and Shechem said. Okay, so it says, "So the young man did not delay to do the thing, because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. He was more honorable than all the household of his father." So this was an honorable man. They're telling you this, right? He was a loving man. He was a prince, okay? And they're telling you that this guy was honorable. He was more honorable than all the household of his father. And Hamor and Shechem, his son, came to the gate of the city and spoke with the men of their city, saying, "These men are at peace with us, therefore let them dwell in the land and trade in it, for indeed the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us as wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only to this condition will the men consent to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Will not their livestock, their property, and every animal of theirs be ours? Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell with us." And all who went out of this gate of his city heeded Hamor and Shechem his son. Every male was circumcised, all who went out of the gate of his city. Now it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males. And they killed Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city, because their sister had been defiled. That was the point, ladies and gentlemen. That was the ignition point for Black Wall Street. They just said that a man had violated one of their women, and then as a result, what they did is they went down and burnt down Tulsa, Oklahoma, and hundreds of people died that day. and the rest were scattered about. They took their sheep, their oxen, and their donkeys, what was in the city and what was in the field, and all their wealth, and their little ones, and their wives they took captive, and they plundered even all that was in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simon and Levi, you have troubled me by making me obnoxious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And since I am few in numbers, they will gather themselves together against me and kill me. I shall be destroyed, my household, and die. But they said, should he treat our sister like a harlot? That's what they said at the conclusion of that story. I mean, specifically the Dinah incident. So it says, and then God said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother. These guys are continuously showing characteristics. And Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, put away the foreign gods that are among you. This is very important. Purify yourselves as if they were unclean, right? Not like them. And change your garments. Then let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make an altar there to God, who answers me in the day of my distress, and has been with me in the way which I have gone. So they gave Jacob all their foreign gods which was in their hands, and all their earrings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree, which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were all around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. I'm going ahead and pause there, because all the terror going on in the world, even this day, and no one pursues the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob, by definition, here over and over again, is Israel. So all the little stuff that goes on, nobody suspects Israel. It's very funny, but these stories are telling us so much about what's relevant, but people are blindly following. You know, I hear people always say, I worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph, all right? But look at the stories of these people and what they do and how they interacted with other human beings. They even tell you that the other human beings behave so humanely, acting lovingly. They're obeying treaties, but they're being dealt with great deceivers, brutal deceivers. They're going to deceive you, and then they're going to come back and slaughter you. Then they kill all the men, right? So when we look at, why African American men are attacked, right? And I don't mean attacked, just by the policing or whatever. I'm talking about through every systematic means. I'm talking about through education. I'm talking about through entertainment and how they're polarizing us and portraying us in a certain way, not only so that people see us in a light, but so that the young see us in a light and they come up in that image. So masculinity is being flooded out with femininity. You see what I'm saying? That is just one way. That's the psychological. Then you talk about how they put in the supermarkets in the urban area radioactive milk from cows that were farmed close to high radiation zones of the United States. You got all kinds of, chemicals being injected into vaccines, and you got different experiments and you name it. Drugs, and if it's a negative and something that can be used against the progress of our people, when I say of our people, I'm talking about the African American specifically, but it applies to people of over the world, human beings all over the world, people with melanated skin all over the world. You are not on the same psychological level as what they're considering themselves. So this is technically an attack against mankind. It means everyone who has an aboriginal beginning, the knowledge of yourself being wiped out and reprogrammed with a new artificial intelligence, a new way. And you're being conditioned to think of this way is the world. So what I'm saying is, if you are listening to a people who will say that the world war won and give you the mindset that the whole world was at war, then is that the same mindset that if it flooded in a certain region, these people would say the whole world was flooded? Or the whole, you scattered them out, the whole world. So what I'm saying is that when you're reading any story, you learn the perspective of the writer, the message that the writer is trying to tell you, the morals of the story. And the moral of the story of the Tower of Babel is not that a people were disobedient, but yet there was a plot to prevent a people from prospering, okay? All right? Okay? So, leave your comments. I did this to spark discussion, to offer a different perspective, a more true perspective. I would say a perspective that is more true to the words as they are written and presented to us here in the Bible. We are free as long as we think freely. To be free comes an inherent responsibility to be able to survive as a free individual. That means you have to gain knowledge of yourself, knowledge of the world, knowledge of land, so that not only you can save yourselves, but you can also give that knowledge to the next generation so that they can survive no matter what the conditions are. Because if they only can survive in the conditions where they got a lot of money and everything is taken care of for them, then if they're put in a condition where they got to actually use the principles of faith and perseverance and all of that, they are not going to be able to survive. They'll get depressed. They'll get discouraged. Mentally, they won't be able to do it. So this is the reason why I'm doing it. I'm doing this as a leader of the new school, because there is a mass deviation away from biblical knowledge. And a lot of people of color are gravitating back to Afrocentric or Kemetic knowledge, which is actually a beautiful thing. I just read to you where Jacob ordered the people to put away their foreign gods. Knowledge, their foreign gods, after they were conquered, their men were destroyed. They were required to take off their jewelry. And what did he do with it? He buried it under the tree. So this is a correlation between the tree of knowledge and the tree of knowledge being a symbol of the Ankh, for an example, which is a symbol that you carry in your hand. The symbol of life. They wore it around their necks or its jewelry or whatever. But these symbols and these things were put away, and they were then made to look like the people of Jacob. So they were required to become like the people of Jacob. We still do that today. When you become American, you, no matter what your culture was before, eventually you lose that heritage. One generation at a time. And the parents fight to have their children hold on to some of their heritage. And you have a percentage that do, and you have a percentage that don't. But then the next generation, the fight is even more difficult. And by the third generation, they're Americanized. They're made for this civilization. And they may fight and hold on certain remnants of it, but it's only a certain time before it's forgotten. And so, like I said, this is a lot of very subliminal, secret things I did. We skipped over a lot. I mean, to go from 11 to chapter 34. But as you see, they correlated, because I told you, I said, well, why did they break down Black Wall Street? Well, I'll show you why they broke down just a couple chapters forward, right? And if you go look up the story and you look at what caused the riot, you will find that is exactly what I said. Someone accused a black man of defiling, in their eyes, a white woman. And they went in there and they pillaged the community, okay? Rather than seeking justice on that individual, the community was pillaged. And the underground overall reasoning is because they've seen the people prospering beyond what they hoped for. And so what that tells me a lot is that if we're living in an environment like that, you're living in an environment where if you build and you spend 2 or 3 generations building, your opposition is just going to turn around and destroy what you built so that your children can benefit from it. And they're willing to continue to do that for however long because they're going to continue to resurrect the same type of divide because the divide is clear and intimate. It's our skin. And we will build. We're pyramid builders. But we're the offspring of people who built the pyramids. And they don't want us to build. So in conclusion, I just want to say that this was not a matter of the people disobeying God. These curses are not valid in my perspective. If you look at the curse on Ham, and what did Ham do? It didn't even say Ham. They make up these stories. They show pictures of Ham laughing at his dad, laughing at the nudity, joking the nudity. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that he was laughing. It just says clearly, Genesis 9:22, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers. That's all he did. But notice they said the father of Canaan. But then when they say Shem and Josepheth, they didn't mention. They're only trying to justify taking Canaan. Most of Genesis is just justifying the taking of Canaan, period. But the Canaanites were closely related to Egypt, the Egyptians. So not only is it the taking of Canaan, but it's also taking of Egypt too. Egypt was conquered. Joseph bankrupted Egypt, right? I did a podcast on that, about how money works. Central banking. Joseph, who's the son of Jacob, right? Jacob, Israel. So the seed of Israel sold into slavery. This is Genesis. And Genesis is about slavery. Making decrees with God. Oaths. Colonialization. Racism against Canaanites. When Abram ordered that his son does not have a wife taken from the Canaanites, but taken from the land of his kindred. You follow a slave and you find out where did he go, and his servant went to Mesopotamia. So Abraham was from Mesopotamia. Where's the proof? Genesis 24:10. The servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, for all his master's goods were in his hands, and he rose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. Why did he do that? 9. Genesis 24:9. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning the matter. What did he make the swear for? Because Abraham said, the Lord God of heaven, who took me from my father's house, he's a foreigner, and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to you descendants I give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. He says 24:3, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanite among whom I dwell. All right. Leave your comments. If you like, share. I don't care what your comments are, but if they're productive, I will get back and comment with you. Start a discussion about these things that I'm talking about. Please be specific about what you disagree with and provide proof about what you disagree in. Where's the proof? I use the Bible so that we have something that we can all commonly deliberate on, because we can debate these facts just straight through history as well, but then we will have to bring in all different sources and stuff like that. Well, we have one source that everybody can kind of all have discussion on it. It don't matter what your faith, what your belief is. It's about where your proof is. So, thanks for listening. God bless.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, son. How you doing?
Good.
How was your first day?